Warning: the following contains scenes of extreme nerdiness. Viewer discretion advised. Okay, finally piecing this cluster together. And now to add the piece de resistance. And, oh. Well, I guess I'll have to modify that. Why 2 fuel gauges? Well, I do have dual tanks, but that's not the reason. No, actually this one is not going to be for fuel. This one I'm going to relabel, cover up these indicators somehow, and this is actually going to end up being my boost gauge. I have to modify this so that it moves more freely like the oil pressure one does. Zoom. So that I can accurately represent the boost. And this is obviously it's 4,000 RPM tack. It's out of like a medium duty truck, and on these they would have had, instead of another fuel gauge over here, they would have an air pressure gauge. And this is kind of a hodgepodge of different cluster gauges, the best looking ones and the best fitting ones out of all those. And yeah, the temp and the fuel gauge aren't the greatest, but they're the best of what I had. So I have a tote full of extra clusters and gauges now, and a couple other pieces which I still have to put on the truck. But let's go cut that out so we can fit this in here. Okay, I just cut that out. Oh, whoops. I just cut that out with this knife, I swear. Let's see if it fits. And oh, yeah. So that is very tight right down there. Focus. Come on, focus. But anyways, you get the idea. Screw in there, screw down there, screw up here, and then put the cover on it. I will probably be doing some other things. I need to put a weight light on this for the glow plugs, and I'm thinking about putting them like right up here, or maybe down here, but I'd like it to actually say weight. So down here where the where the gear selector indicator was for the automatic transmission, there's still a spot on the bezel, on the dash bezel. There's still a spot on the dash bezel right here, which is clear, and I could put kind of like these lights. I could put a light on one right in the middle or something for the grid heater. Sorry, not glow plugs, grid heater. I don't know. We'll see as I get to that. But now I need to, since I've got my custom little computer jobby to run all these gauges, I am not going to be using the original circuit board back here, so I'm just going to be soldering wires to all those little connectors in there. Then I'll have to figure out how to attach wires to the fuel gauge, and I also have to figure out what this guy does. There is kind of a switch jumper thingamabobber here that I can swap A and B. I'm not sure what that does. I'm thinking it's 6 or 8 cylinder, but I don't really see anywhere where it says that. But anyways, stay tuned. Okay, I think I've got the cluster mostly wired. So, just using 12 volts from that, which doesn't even come up to 12 volts because it's a weak little power supply, but you can see my fuel gauge is pegging out because as it goes empty, basically the resistance to ground lessens, so it pulls it more towards ground. Temperature, as the temperature increases, the resistance to ground goes up, so the temperature goes up, it goes more towards ground. And oil pressure, as the oil pressure decreases, it pulls it more towards ground. And I can simulate some of that with, I think this should be the oil. There, so that's just grounded straight out, so it shows 0. This one should bring the fuel gauge down to empty. And this one should max the temperature out. So next step is adding the LED backlighting to illuminate all the gauges. The tach actually will basically get wired in separately. The boost gauge down here I also don't have wired in, and that is because this is my boost gauge and I don't have any way to connect to it. I've got my wires over here that would go on here, but the originals use this little spring clip that the little I don't know, number 8 machine thread pushes into these and makes the connection. And so instead of using the printed circuit board doohickey that they had, which these basically just would be expected to just rub on the copper, on a bare copper contact point, I actually have wires soldered running all around. And this is actually a 20-pin ATX computer power supply connector. It started off as an extension, and I cut it right in half and used this half to get to the wires to everywhere, and then this half will get spliced into some of the wires that are coming out of my silver black box over there, and some of them are for other things: turn signals, bright light indicators, backlighting. But yeah, you can see the tach has its own 3 wires, and I'll leave that as that. So let's see what that looks like after a while. Well, once again, video is getting a little long, so stay tuned for part 3 coming up, where I cover the backlighting of the gauges and possibly install it for a little test run or testing out the gauges. But thanks for watching.